dirt road off a 2-lane past a shot up county sign. Squeaking of a backyard screen door letting you know that it's
The Putnam Personalities podcast exists to highlight the good, the positive, and the inspirational in our community. This episode is not an endorsement of any political or religious ideology. This podcast is a simple interview to get to know our friends, neighbors, leaders, and colleagues on a more personal level. Sit back, grab some sweet tea, and enjoy today's interview.
like home to me.
Hi, Mr. Surrency. It's good to have you on the podcast today. And you are my third interview, and I'm a little nervous. I'm nervous about anything done in public. So I'm a pastor, but I'm not a good public speaker. But anyway,
well, I'm sure you speak behind the pulpit, right?
I do, but I'm still nervous. So
if we need to pull the pulpit up here, you might feel a little more comfortable.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. And you told me I can call you Rick. I will try my best, but honestly, I have good manners. I'll try Mr. Surrency the best I can.
That's fine, either way.
But I'm glad to have you on here. Like I said, this is my third interview. This is so new to me. I know you have your own podcast, so you're very familiar. I don't have probably a nice studio like you have. The other thing I have to apologize about is our air conditioner went out today. It's 75 in here right now. I am a sweatbox already, so I apologize if I'm doing this. But
no, you're fine.
Anyway, well, I wanted to have you on the program today simply because, I want to get to know you more. And honestly, when we do, this podcast is about the positive, it's about the inspirational, it's about the good in our county. I know you're running for superintendent of schools again. You are now, and you have, is it 8 years already or 4?
I have 8 years in already.
Okay,
two terms.
Okay, 2 terms in. And the goal of this podcast is not to be religious or political. So we're not going to talk about if you win, what are you going to do the next 4 years. I mean, that's all in the Lord's hands. But I do want to talk to you today more on a personal level. Mm-hmm. And I've talked to you walking down the street. I saw you one time. You were putting some of your signs up. I saw you at the Mexican restaurant a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And that's what I talked to you about coming on. Mm-hmm. I'd like to know more about you as a person. So let me start this. Did you grow up in Putnam County?
Actually, I grew up in Alachua County.
Okay.
Hawthorne, which is not far from Putnam County.
Yes, sir.
But and I moved to Putnam County in the mid-'80s, so probably when I was almost 30 years old, I moved to Putnam County.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very good. And I know that you have been a principal in one of our local schools, but tell me about your history of teaching and all that good stuff.
Yeah, actually, I started in education in 1978. I was an instructional assistant. After I was actually going to school at Florida, get my teaching degree, became an instructional assistant while I was in college, and after that, of course, became a teacher, and then I coached at the same time, and then I moved to Putnam County where I became a dean, who deals with discipline. And I've been in several of the schools here in Putnam County, but went the route of dean, assistant principal, and then now superintendent.
Okay.
And actually retired in 2016 after being a principal for 10 years. And then, I decided I'd run for this position, and I've been here since 2016.
Okay. What kind of changes have you seen in our community over the years? Good or bad? Bad is fine. We try to focus on the positive. What kind of things have you seen?
I think nothing but positive. I think, I think we're seeing right now, we're in the midst of kind of a revitalization effort, not only in Palatka, but countywide. And I know a lot of people have been talking about they're anticipating a lot of growth. I mean, our property values are very attractive to people moving in from neighboring counties. And, I think businesses are starting to come in. We see it all over the county. So I think with a lot of things happening around us, the Shannon Bridge being raised, the bypass for the interstate being put in north of the county, we see a lot of people moving in on the east side of the county from St. Johns County down 207. So I think there's a lot of things happening at once, and I think our county is really going to look a lot different probably the next 5 years.
Yeah, when I moved here 11 years ago, there was a lot of things lacking. We have a Taco Bell in Interlochen now. It's not up and running yet, but we have a Taco Bell in Interlochen. You know what I mean? That's some serious business.
Yeah. When you get a Taco Bell, you've arrived, right?
I have kids at church who are like, I'm going to go there and every day after school and get Taco Bell. I'm like, where are you getting that money from? My grandpa. I'm like, you ain't getting no money to go to Taco Bell every day. But anyway, that's a lot of fun. You have any hobbies?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, my wife and I bought a boat, so we like taking the boat out on the river. It's kind of like a pontoon boat, so we take the family out there and just enjoy the river. Used to exercise a lot and play golf, but just in the recent years I've had to back off just because of my hours are kind of difficult. So spend time at home and love taking the boat out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What is you said about your hours, so what does a day look like for Rick Surrency?
Well, depends on, every day's kind of unique. Spend time in meetings all day, or if not, I'm visiting schools, or I travel a lot, go to different conferences, different events, visit other school districts, that type of thing. So, I learn a lot when I get outside of our confines of our county, and I've really learned so much just not only in this state, but out of state. I do a lot of out-of-state conferences, and again, I think we can learn so much when we open ourselves up for other people. Yeah.
Is there something that you can share with me, either in your time of working in the schools or even as superintendent? Is there anything you can share with me that you've learned? And I say that because as we get older, sometimes people think they can't learn, but obviously we're always in a mode of learning. But what are some things that you've learned in the last few years that you can encourage me with as a younger person, like kind of look into my future?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. I think one thing that I've learned, number one, is don't be the smartest person in the room. I mean, if you are, it's time to go to another room. And with all kidding aside, I think I have learned so much just by surrounding myself with people that are very knowledgeable. And I think I'm not ashamed to ask them for the way they do things. I'll tell you one case in point. I've got a great friend who's a superintendent in Colorado, and I've learned a lot from him. He and I have been on a number of conferences together. We've presented together, but he is, as far as technology and really having a district that is teaching 21st century skills, I've learned so much from him, and I've visited his district a couple of times, and he does things like, in his innovation center, they build airplanes, and they do a lot of stuff that's out of the box. And I brought back a lot of those ideas, and we are in the process of, we have our own flight school. Kids are learning to actually earn their pilot's license.
Awesome.
And, we're trying to get into the business of maybe building or working on airplanes, and even possibly building satellites. That kind of thing. We have building construction, but we're trying to make it adaptable, not only for the trades, but also to do some of the really highly technical things that this area is going to be calling for. Matter of fact, I'm meeting with some people from Space Florida tomorrow in a meeting.
Cool.
And I just think we need to set our kids up in Putnam County for jobs of the future, position them where they can have those high demand, high wage jobs. Right. So that's kind of what I'm looking at.
Good. We had a young man live with us years ago, and he went to Springstead, I think it's called, high school in Spring Hill. And he came home and he said, well, I got my elective scheduled. I'm like, what are you taking? He's like, we're doing submarine building. I'm like, submarine building? And they built a submarine. So there's all kinds of neat things like that. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and we're doing drones and all that, robots and all that.
I've seen some of the robots at the school. That's really neat.
Yeah.
Going back to your childhood a little bit, I don't know, childhood questions are always kind of fun. So, what's your first memories of being a child?
Well, I grew up in a large family on a farm.
Okay.
I'm one of 5, and had a very strong Christian background, strong family unit, high expectations, and neither of my parents graduated from high school, but they definitely had high expectations that their kids would, or they would go on and do neat things. And I grew up and I idolized my siblings, especially my older siblings, and kind of followed the path of one of my own brothers who is in education. He's actually a superintendent in a county on the other side of Electric County, Gilchrist County.
Okay.
So he's a superintendent, I'm a superintendent, but we kind of took similar paths, and we coached football together. We were school administrators at the same time and all that. So a lot of good things there, but he's the superintendent. My other brother's an attorney in Gainesville. My youngest sister is a principal in Electric County, and my oldest sister is the chairman of the board for Seminole Electric. So, have people that definitely reflect those high expectations. But
And these are parents that didn't finish high school.
did not finish high school.
Right.
And my dad served at the end of World War II. My mom worked in our high school,
Okay.
but she never earned her college degree because back then it wasn't really a high expectation like it is now.
Right.
Or to, and I'm not saying you have to have a college degree, but to have some additional training. And so they taught that, and just some real strong family values, work ethic, and that's what I grew up in. And the value of hard work. I built fence, I raised cows and all that on our farm. So again, that hard work has been instilled in me, and I truly value that.
And I recognized sacrifices. Your mom and dad sacrificed. My mom and dad met, I forget how old my mom was. I think she was 16 or 17 when they got married, but she dropped out of high school. But I married my dad, but my dad went on to they got their GEDs, and then he went on to college and graduated like summa cum laude, or I don't know. But anyway, he's gone on and worked several jobs, and he's got a master's and a doctor's, all earned. So
Wow.
But didn't finish high school. But he realized education was important later on in life. But
Well, my dad graduated in 1944, and he was already out of high school course when my mom graduated in 48, I believe. And she married him on May 1st of her senior year. So he had to sign her report card when she graduated. So that's kind of neat.
This is almost a dumb question. They say there's no dumb question, right? This one's kind of dumb, but I think it's kind of funny. Do you remember any house rules that you had that just didn't make any sense? It's a hard question.
Growing up?
Well, maybe have you had any house rules for your kids that didn't make any sense?
Well, good question. I just remember, first of all, we had one bathroom,
Okay.
5 kids, 2 parents, 1 bathroom. So it's almost like you almost had to reserve the bathroom if you ever want to use it, especially with sisters around,
Oh yeah.
But, again, I think what I learned was, clean up after yourself, keep your room clean.
Just basic rules.
Basic rules, yeah. Just that strong family unit, respect our mom. And if you didn't, then wait till your dad got home, kind of thing.
Oh yeah. And I'm sure with your position, you realize sometimes there's rules that are made that are just dumb, but there's a reason they had to be made because somebody did something really dumb. So, yeah.
Well, you know what? I really respect that because I think all kids need boundaries, whatever the boundaries are, and know how far they can go. And and I had those boundaries set. Not that I was the perfect kid, but I knew just how far I could push my parents, and I tried to stay within those boundaries because the worst thing I could do is to ever disappoint my parents. And if I disappointed them, that was worse than anything else that they could do.
Right.
So
I'm learning now as I get older, kind of goes along the same lines, but not to move a fence until you know why it was placed there to begin with. And even coming here at this church, it was here for 60 years when I got here, and now we're over 70 years, but been here for 11 myself. But sometimes there was things set in place. You're like, why? This doesn't make sense. This is dumb. But then realizing after you remove that fence and remove something, you're like, oh, that's why they did it that way, or But a lot of times that's how rules are made. Something happened and it had to be set up.
But Jason, I think that really speaks to in school these days. We refer to culture, school culture, district culture, kind of the way you do things.
Right.
And I agree with you. I think especially if you're new to a school or district, you kind of need to understand that before you come in and start making a lot of changes.
Right.
Understand that why the fence is there, so to speak,
Right.
and why people do the things they do. And then if you see you might need to change something. I mean, don't change it for the sake of changing it. Change it because you see there might be a way to improve things. But
Right.
I agree with you. I think we need to understand those routines, those customs, the culture, and all that. So there's a lot of value in that.
My sister's a teacher. She was teaching in the Brooksville area, and I guess they had a new administrator come in the first year, he made everybody take everything off the walls. Everybody had to have the same color rooms, the same decorations, and it was just a crazy idea. And then at the end of the year, they found out it just didn't work, because everybody learns differently. Every age learns differently. But anyway, but I've learned that too. Just we are dealing, especially at a school, you're dealing with individuals, and every individual learns. I was talking to a pastor this morning about the same thing. That he's working at a school locally, and every student learns differently. You can't always put everything across the board for everybody, and it's good for a teacher to know how their students learn, because sometimes you have to teach multiple ways.
Well, I think it's the same thing. It's almost like courting. or dating.
Right.
I think, you're talking about a leader coming in to a new school or a pastor to a church. I think there's almost like a dating period where you have to get to know each other and become friends first.
Right.
And then when you have to make changes or whatever, then, at least you kind of know them and you kind of have that bond. But definitely don't lead with changing everything on the wall.
A lot of pastors I've heard say, like, well, the honeymoon's over.
Yeah, well said.
Like, we were there for a while, now the honeymoon's over, now it's like, I asked, my last interview, I asked this question, and she had a really good answer, and I love this question. Is there a moment in your life that you wish you had a photograph of? Like something that had happened, somewhere you'd been that you just wish you had a photograph to show somebody, or a situation or something?
Well, this is kind of there's so many things I can, good and bad and indifferent. I was telling somebody the other day I'm a former history teacher, and I love to talk about where I was when something eventful happened. You remember where you were? I mean, I'm going back to as far back as Kennedy. I know where I was when Kennedy was shot. I mean, I was in grade school and all that. But I'll never forget when I was teaching in 1986. I was teaching in Hawthorne, and teaching a class of 8th graders, and actually had another class in with us too, because we were watching live the Space Shuttle Challenger.
Yep.
Watching it live. January 28th, 1986.
Okay.
And we watched it live, and all of a sudden we saw the tragedy happen. And if I could have captured the looks on the faces of 2 classes of 8th graders, totally speechless. 8th graders normally are never speechless, but in that moment, it's kind of like they saw something that will be forever on their mind. And I can remember very vividly even stepping outside and seeing the smoke plume and all that, but just seeing the looks on people's faces in the face of tragedy.
So you were here in Florida when that happened?
Yeah, I was
right.
in Electric County, and
obviously you can see.
Yeah, you can look southeast and see the smoke plume.
Right. So I guess I was in 4th or 5th grade, and I was in Indiana when it happened. So I wasn't able to see it, but I did see it on TV when it happened as well. So I do remember that. So with that being said, 9/11, where were you?
Yeah, again, one of those things. I was an assistant principal at Palatka High School,
Okay.
and somebody said, "Hey, something's happened in New York. There's some kind of plane hit a building." So we all go in and on our TV in our office and watching it live. And I mean, again, that was it's one of those things where, okay, what are we supposed to do next? Because you didn't know all the air traffic was stopped, and you remember it very well too. And it was just I knew exactly where I was and the thoughts that were going in my head and all that, and really a scary time.
I had 2 little girls at the time, my oldest 2, and we were living in Chattanooga. I was on Signal Mountain, which is, no one knows where Signal Mountain is, but it's across from, you can see Lookout Mountain from Signal Mountain. But and I was on Signal Mountain at a Pruitt's. I was at a little grocery store on top, and I was doing a magazine route, and somebody came in and said a plane hit the tower. And I said, "Oh, that's tragic." And then I went across the street to CVS, and I was putting the magazines up at CVS, and someone came in and said, "Oh, a plane just hit the tower." Like, "Oh, I heard about that hour." And they're like, "No, a second one." I'm like, "What?" Then the pharmacist, I still remember, he grabbed a little tiny, back then you could, a little 3-inch black and white underneath the counter. He pulled it out and plugged it in, and we sat there and watched it. And then I came down to Mountain. It was at Kmart, and back then, Kmart, we haven't heard that, but then there were screens all over the wall, and everybody was just sitting there like, because by then, I don't remember what order, but something else had been hit. My heart was sunk. I'm like, we're under attack as a country. I called my wife, and in Chattanooga, we have a big power plant there. And where we lived, near the Harrison Bay area, it's right across the water. And that was terrifying to me, because I'm like, we hit the Pentagon, we've had a plane drop, we've had 2 towers, like, what's next? And that could be a next target. So that was a very, I think we all remember where we were on that day.
And coincidentally, we have a teacher that teaches at one of our high schools. I won't mention his name right now, but former military who was in the Pentagon at the time the Pentagon got hit. And he was actually in the basement doing something and didn't hear it, didn't know what happened. And actually, when they evacuated the Pentagon, that's when he found out the plane had hit the Pentagon. But he definitely remembers, being in the building at the same time.
He's one of the ones I like to eventually get to talk to. That'd be
He's got a great story.
Neat to hear his story. You have a best friend?
Yeah, my wife's my best friend.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's why we like doing stuff together.
How long y'all been married?
Been married 19 years.
Awesome.
And we together have 6 children, 10 grandchildren. So
awesome.
Always have something going on.
Not necessarily relationship-wise, but just in general in your life. What was one of the, you would say, is the hardest time of your life, and how'd you get through it?
Well, I think I know when anything going on with your kids. I think when my youngest daughter actually was in the hospital, we thought she had a brain tumor, and it turned out to be meningitis.
Oh, wow.
And this was sometime in the 90s. I forget
How
exactly.
old? Was she a teenager? Or?
No, she was second grade, first or second grade. But anyway, I just remember the trauma that we went through as a family, and just the fear and everything else, and and we got through it. Very scary, but we got through it, and I don't know, it just makes you value those moments you do have with your kids. I mean, we all face trials and tribulations, but that was a real scary time because we didn't know what was going to happen.
Right. Yes, sir. What did you want to be when you were a kid? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Yeah, a number of things. I love sports, and thought about, I always wanted to play football, college football and all that. But as I was approaching graduation, thought about going into the military, changed my mind, and didn't do that. Thought about a number of things, but I wanted to be, I love football so much, I wanted to coach football in high school.
Okay.
So I went into education so I could coach.
Okay.
And then after a while, after the coaching thing kind of wore off, then I really focused on education in the classroom and educational leadership. But coaching was the thing that really drew me into education.
So that knocked out 2 or 3 birds with one stone. So
Yeah.
That knocked out some questions. Very good. So now I got to think of another one to ask. No, not think, but I've got a bunch here. So what are you proudest of so far in your life?
Well, I think the position I'm in now, and again, I'm not being political. I'm just
No,
talking
that's fine.
about the career, my career pathways.
Yep.
I've been in education as of now 46 years,
Awesome.
and then if I serve another term, I will have 50 years in. So it's been kind of a lifelong pursuit. I feel very honored that we've made a lot of positive changes in the district, increasing grad rates. We're building new schools now. A lot of good things going on. But I was professionally, I was most honored by being named the 2023 Florida Superintendent of the Year.
Awesome.
And again, I say that not to boast or to brag, but to really talk about the people around me. I mean, that's one of those things that it's a district award.
Yeah.
You say, we would not be here if it wasn't for everybody in the district.
Right.
And I'm the one they hand it to.
Mm-hmm.
But, personally, as a professional, that's something that I probably will never top, So again, I think that's been a pinnacle of my professional career. And I have a saying that's above my desk. That's I have it on the wall above my desk. That it's by John Maxwell. Now you've heard of John Maxwell.
Yes, sir.
He says, "I may not live forever, but I can create something that does." And that's kind of what I want to do, is create some systems, some things in our district that long after I'm gone, my kids, grandkids, and the people who live here are going to benefit from that.
I mean, Phil Jackson was known for all the rings, all his, championships, but I mean, look at all the people he coached, and he wouldn't have those. I have a friend who's a big Pistons fan. Well, he wouldn't have those if he was coaching the Pistons. But no, he had, he coached good people, and they went on to win titles and stuff, and he got the accolade of being the coach or whatever. But again, your players have to follow, and it's a team effort, so it's pretty awesome.
Well, and the most gratifying thing besides that, and this happens, from time to time, when people come up to you who I probably don't know, and say, "You taught me back in whatever year," or "You were my principal whenever," or "You had something to do in my life, and you made a positive difference in my life," you can't put a price tag on that.
Right.
I mean, that's what every educator strives for.
Right. Right.
So that's a big reward.
I do the Bible studies at the school. We used to do pastor's lunch. They call it pastor's lunch down in Palatka.
Oh, yeah.
And we do stuff at Interlochen. But
Yeah.
one thing I get to do is I help the First Baptist in Interlochen. We feed the football team every Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And we give a Bible devotion to the football players if they want to stay and listen. Well, yeah, I think it was Monday or Tuesday. I was at Zaxby's. It was Monday. Zaxby's, and some kid was working. I had no clue who he was. He was working in the back, and he was preparing my food. Hopefully he liked me. But anyway, he came and he's like, "Hey, I remember you." And I said, "Oh," I said, "Where from?" He goes, "We used to teach. He used to talk to us at the football meals, and I just want to say thank you." I'm like, "Oh, I don't know this kid. I don't remember him because there's 80, 100 kids every year that come through that program." But I was thankful to get he remembered me for that, and hopefully I like to be remembered for good things, and
Yeah.
that was a good thing. How about mentors? Do you have a mentor or two that you'd like to? Well,
I think my brother, who I mentioned earlier, has been really a great mentor of mine. I mean, we kind of followed the same paths, but before I ran for this position, I sat down with him and discussed it with him, and because he has about 6 years experience ahead of me, and he's just been somebody who I've looked up to, and all my siblings are kind of like mentors, and we get
Right.
together from time to time. But my brother, who's in education, has been a close friend, close mentor, and I've followed his lead in a lot of situations.
Do you associate with a religion or a spiritual practice of some sort?
Yeah, I'm a member of the First Baptist Church in Palatka.
Okay.
Grew up as a Methodist in Hawthorne. Married a Baptist, so I've been a Baptist ever since.
Okay.
But I've been a member in First Baptist in Palatka since the mid '80s. So I've been there a
Okay.
while.
I don't usually ask this question, but it's okay. I think between Methodist and Baptist, since you've been a part of both, what was the main differences? Or
Well, the main thing is I like Baptist food a little better. No, I'm kidding. No, dinner on the
they have better fried chicken.
Yeah,
right?
no, seriously, they both have great food. It's a little more ceremonial, if you will, in the Methodist church. We did the communion, and I just remember from growing up there, our pastors or ministers were selected a little different.
Okay.
So a little bit of nuances there. Even some of the songs were a little different. Some of them were similar, but I just saw with the Baptist church is a little more spontaneous, a little more free, if you will.
Okay.
Methodist church is a little more
Traditional, maybe?
a little more traditional, kind of followed an agenda, so to
Right.
speak.
I
So
think it's funny because in our songbook here at our church, we have hymns, obviously, and there's a lot of them written by Methodists.
mhm.
So there's not a whole lot of Baptist hymns out there. There are some, but
There
Methodists,
are probably more
Wesleys, and Baptists-
similarities and differences.
Right.
Up there. We're all
Exactly.
heading the same direction.
Exactly. And then, with that being said, is there a time of your life that you could say you've actually experienced a miracle or an answer to prayer? You can definitely say this was a miracle, this was an answer to prayer.
Yeah, I think when my daughter was real sick, that's just one of many times that a lot of prayers were being offered for her, and I was praying a lot, and just to see God's hand in that, and see, when you're totally powerless and you can't control the situation, that's where you really reach out to God and say, okay, I surrender. I need your help in whatever your will is. So that's been one time. I mean, there's been many times we've had things go, and all of us, things going on in our life, and we feel powerless and we feel vulnerable. And I think God does that because He wants us to know that He is in charge, and He has a plan that we need to, follow His lead and be obedient.
Right. So I've not tried to throw you any hardball. I mean, it's been a pretty soft, I guess I would call it a soft interview, very easy, and that's on purpose. I like to hear about family. I like to hear the positive. That's the reason of this podcast. Here's a couple more, I guess. Do you have any holidays that are your favorites, or is there anything unique that you guys use as a family to celebrate the holidays, or a specific one or whatever?
Well, obviously Christmas is always a wonderful holiday, and my siblings and I get together. And my mom passed away about 6 years ago, and we used to always get together with her. My dad passed away when I was really young, in my 20s. But we get together, and then as time has gone on, we used to get together at my mom's house for Christmas, and it was always like the Sunday before Christmas or something like that. And then we used to meet in her house, but as we've gotten kids and grandkids, there's like 70 offspring now. I
It's too big.
mean, like rabbits, you know?
Right.
So now we meet, we met at a park, and we met at our my former church fellowship hall. So we have to have a big area, but that's kind of a real traditional thing, and we still do that. I mean, even though my mom's passed away, we feel like it's really important to try to continue some of those traditions where we can all know each other and where we came from. Seems like every time we get together, I see a kid like, never seen that kid before. Just, they're growing up. I don't see them but once or twice a year.
You still do it at Christmas, or you do it on a different day?
We do it at Christmas.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a big tradition my family
My
has.
grandma and grandpa, when I had kids, my grandma got irritated easily. So when I had children and started to continue to go to our family events, my grandma would start to be agitated with the little kids. And so she was like, well, why don't we do something different? And so we kind of got uninvited, which I didn't like that because it's my grandma. But then my cousin, who was still younger, he still got to go to grandma and grandpa's, and that wasn't fair. Like, why's he? But we don't get to go. But anyway, we started doing a family reunion. We did it every March, and it was different, but we still got together every year. And now, of course, my grandma and grandpa both passed on. But yeah, I always enjoy hearing different traditions. It's fun.
Well, at that family gathering, we also have another tradition. We have something called the vase, and it looks like it's a big tall vase with a thing on it. It looks like a bong, okay? And my mom actually bought it at a yard sale. She was
Now, we're not editing this, just so you know.
right,
so.
right. And it's not a bong, but it looks like one. But my mom bought it at a yard sale, and probably 30 or 40 years ago, we just started this tradition like somebody in the family has to take it home for the year because it's so atrocious looking. And so one of my nephews actually plays a game with a lot of the people who represent our families at this Christmas gathering, and they do this thing, play some kind of game where whoever ends up last has to take the vase home for the year. So that's kind of
So it's not a Stanley Cup, it's quite the opposite.
right.
Okay.
When you take it home, you put it in your closet or something. I think the idea is you're going to put it on your table and be embarrassed by it, but it's just a funny thing we all do.
That is hilarious. I love that. That's really good. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, and then how about a bucket list? Do you have anything on your bucket list, things you'd like to do?
Yeah, when I retire again, I want to go, I just want to travel. I've been overseas once, and just want to go over and visit. My family came from, we did the family tree. We came from France, and I would love to go back and visit France. I've never been to France. I've been to Finland, but I haven't been to France. And I'd love to just go there and say I visited there. May find some more relatives, who knows? But we came over during when the Huguenots were expelled from France. We were part of the Huguenots. And
Okay.
Surrency is a French name.
Okay.
So just
one
want to
of
go
those,
by there.
mine is Milo. It's French as well.
Okay,
It's
really?
silent. So yes, sir. So let me ask you this, and this wasn't part of the questions, but so you said your dad was in World War II. Is that correct?
He was part of the occupation force at the end of World War II. Yeah.
Okay. So
Spent
where-
time in Italy.
Okay, in Italy. My grandpa was a D-Day survivor, so he was
Really?
on the beaches of Normandy. And of course, that generation, they don't really, a lot of them didn't talk about what they did. But I know he spent his whole life with canes or with braces and walking with canes. They were supposed to take his legs off. Supposedly, they flew him to London to take his legs off, but something happened in London, electricity on the hospital, and they ended up saving his legs throughout the night. And then so they salvaged his legs, but he wore these braces. But
Wow.
I don't know the story, but I know that he had shrapnel in his body through his whole life. He had a container of shrapnel that he had set aside that was pulled out, and some couldn't have been pulled out because of where they're located. So anyway, but yeah, I've always wanted to go back to France, or I would like to go to France, not back to, but
Well,
for the same purpose.
Speaking of World War II, my mom had 3 brothers, and one brother and they're all in the military, but one brother was tragically killed in an accident, and another brother was a POW in World War II in Europe and was freed by the Russians.
Oh, wow.
Spent a lot of time over there. Didn't want to talk about his experience at all. And the other brother was killed in the Pacific, was killed on the island of Guam. He actually mailed a letter to my mom before he died, and my mom didn't get the letter until after he died. But he actually played football and baseball at the University of Florida in the mid-30s, and then went into the Marines and, tragically was killed over there. And then after he was killed and buried in Guam, they actually exhumed his body, and he's now buried in the National Cemetery at Hawaii. And some of my family's been over there to visit him. So anyway, just
That's interesting.
a lot of that you see in the war movies or the movies where, they come and knock on the door to do, a member of the military just to inform you that your son, that kind of thing. So my grandmother went through that 3 times. So
Man,
anyway.
that's unimaginable.
Yeah.
Well, here's some lightning round, and we'll finish with these. But here's
Sure.
some quick questions. If you could meet one famous person, who would it be? Like, it could be historical, or if you could meet one person, who would you want to meet?
I think I would love to have met Franklin Delano Roosevelt, just because of the time he served as president during the Depression and World War II. And I lived that period of time too. Just love to think what was going through his mind when all that was going on.
Okay. Have you ever met a famous person?
Yeah, I think so. Let me think. Let me see. I have met, how about Steve Spurrier? Former coach at Florida. Yeah, I've met him and been to his restaurant. He actually, when he was recruiting back in the 90s, I met him at Palatka High School. He came in there, and I was assistant principal, got to meet him then. Yeah.
I had an autographed picture of him. I had gotten it from somebody. I can't remember where, but I gave it to my uncle for Christmas one year. I don't know what he did with it, but I thought it was pretty cool. And then, what's the last book you've read, or a book that you've read recently that you recommend?
And I love reading books, especially leadership books, and I'm a big one on book studies with my staff. I read the book Atomic Habits by James, I think, is that James Clear or, not, either James Clear or the other guy, but Atomic Habits.
Okay.
And that was really a good book as far as, just trying to do things in a positive way and develop some of those positive habits in your life. So.
Okay. What's your favorite music style or artist?
I like listening to a lot of female vocalists. As a matter of fact, I listen to one. She's from Europe, and she's Danish, I believe, from Denmark, if that's right. Her name is Emma Heesters, and she's a beautiful voice.
What kind of music would that be classified as?
Contemporary.
She like a solo artist, or
solo.
Okay.
Yeah, solo artist, and she sings a lot of remakes. A lot of songs that were popular, but she remakes them and that type of thing.
Yeah,
so,
that's interesting.
Yep.
You have a favorite Bible verse or favorite quote? You shared the Maxwell quote. So
Yeah.
You can't have that one again.
Yeah,
Just kidding.
can't do that one. Probably, for God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son. So
That's an encouraging quote, verse.
Yeah.
It's one that I grasp onto, that's for sure.
That's definitely comes to mind first.
All right, so this one's supposed to be a lightning round question, but it could, you can expound upon it because you kind of have to in a way. Last one, the stupidest dare that you agreed to.
Stupidest dare. I remember as a kid, did a lot of stupid things. We grew up, we actually drank water out of a water hose. I mean, not many people.
That is really stupid.
I remember doing something really stupid one time, and I told somebody about this the other day, just to think that the risks that we take that we don't even realize how risky they were. But I remember some of my buddies built some tunnels underground, which most tunnels are, I guess. And, and they, I don't know if they dared me, but the peer pressure, you just want to do what the rest of them are doing. We're crawling through all these underground tunnels, and if the things had collapsed, they would have never found us,
Right.
That kind of thing. So I'm thinking that was probably the stupidest thing I've ever done, and I didn't even realize that at the time, because you just don't realize when you're in danger. But I'd say that was one of the biggest.
So I don't want to. The interviews I do, I want it to be soft. I want it to be easy, and there's no gotcha questions, but. I at the end I always do this. Anything I asked you, if you want to ask me a question too, I don't mind answering. So anything you want to ask me?
Yeah, tell me this. What's your perspective as someone who's moved in from Indiana?
No, actually was born and raised mostly in Florida, but my dad was in college for 4 years in Indiana, so I did live there.
That's what I was thinking.
Second through 5th grade, but I'm from Florida. So.
Okay, what part of Florida?
Pinellas Park, St. Pete area.
Gotcha.
I was born and raised.
So coming to Putnam County, and you've been here 11 years now, right?
Yes, sir.
I'm just curious, because I ask this a lot to people who moved into this county. What was your perception of Putnam County then? What's your perception of Putnam County now?
It's a really good question, actually. When I moved here, I was a little culture shocked because Tampa, St. Pete, Brandon, I kind of grew up in that area. Now we lived in Brandon for a while and it bordered Plant City. So there was a little bit of the southern culture there, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. But moving here, in fact, when I heard about the church, I came here, I was asked to come and fill in one week, and I said I would. So I Googled the address, and then somehow it landed down the street, and I was like, what in the world? I'm like, there's a church. I saw this like barn. I'm like, is the church meeting a barn? I wasn't sure what to think. So I zoomed around, and I'm like, man, that must be the church. And I drove up and down the street with Google Maps, and then I find the buildings. I'm like, oh, that must be the church. So when we came up here, I kind of knew what it was going to be like when we got here, but it was definitely different. And the church, the way the church was set up at the time, the people, wonderful people, but different style than I grew up in, and so everything was different, 100%. And then being asked to stay 7 weeks later, our family said, we answered the call to stay, so we stayed. We moved our family here in January of 2014 or anyway, we moved here, and I was nervous at first because we had already been told, don't eat there. It's the Putnam County jokes. Everything's all methed up, and you hear all these things. And of course, we learn quickly if you say Interlaken, you're from Interlaken, that you've raised there. So we learned some things. So yes, coming here was very odd at first, and then we heard so much negative. And even within a year of being here, someone stole our vehicle from the church property. Somebody else broke in and stole our chainsaw. So yeah, right off the bat, there were some negative things, but to be honest with you, in fact, we used to have the old sign out front where you could actually put letters on it. And Monday morning we woke up and our car was gone. So I put on the sign, if you stole a preacher's van, please bring it back. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, but now we've been here 11 years and I've learned to know the people. We've got involved with the school in different ways, and we've seen students grow up and become good citizens. And in fact, our interview we did the other day was with one of our young ladies that just graduated from college that was an Interlochen high school graduate, to see her grow up and the good things she's doing. And so we've seen some growth. Like I said, we have a Taco Bell now, but no, we have seen some growth. We've seen a lot of what was dilapidated been rebuilt. My kids, one of my daughters graduated from Interlochen High School, and so never thought about putting our kids in a public school. But we did, kind of out of necessity. I learned that I didn't know chemistry and algebra like I thought I did, and so we had to get them in there. But I think overall it's been a good experience. We can focus on negatives all day long, anybody can, but I think there's been a lot of positive. But the thing is, though, you have to get acclimated to your community, and if you don't, you can sit back and see all the bad. You can talk about how bad the police do things, how bad the school system is, how bad the roads are, how bad whatever. You can complain about everything. The restaurants are, but when you start to get to meet people and you get to know them on a more personal level, sometimes, like a restaurant, you go to a restaurant, may not be the fanciest, but you start to get to know the owner, the waitresses, the waiter, and all of a sudden it's more personal, and some things that were important, you kind of let them slide because you start to get to know that person better. You get to know them, and that's actually why I'm doing this podcast, is I want to get to know people better. And once you get to know people better, that's how you build relationships. Because I am a very negative person, unfortunately. That's why it's important for me to do this podcast. And I can pick out the negative in anybody. That's just who I am. And I'm doing it to myself a lot too. But yeah, that wasn't a lightning round question, was it? That wasn't. And
one thing you said, I'm a firm believer in this time of being very divisive in our nation, and it seems like everybody's at everybody's throat. But I think everybody has something they can find in common with somebody else.
Right.
You and I, our families are from France, and that's just one thing.
Right.
And just living in the same county automatically gives us something in common. So I think as long as we as Americans, as Putnam Countians, as Christians, as we can always try to find the good in somebody and find something that you can talk about in common, that's going to help, cut out a lot of this negativity, I think.
Right.
Yeah, we got plenty to be negative about, but let's find those things that we
Larry
have in
Crabb
common.
wrote a book called Connecting, and I don't remember everything about that book, but I read it in college. But one thing I've learned is, I think a lot of times we connect with people because we want something from them. Like, if I connect with you, then I can persuade you to my religion, I can persuade you for a vote, I can persuade you to buy a car, but the truth is, we've got to learn to connect with people because technically we're community, we need each other. Let's be honest. I need you to be a friend just as much as you need a vote, or I need you to, but we need each other in community. And I think too many times we are pitted because of the media, because of the day and age we live in. We're pitted against each other because of party, because of race, because of religion. And honestly, a taco should bring us all together, right?
Well, I've seen since the pandemic, that had a huge impact on
Right.
me in the school district, and I think just America. And I think that has shown us that, relationships are important. And when we were forced to be away from each other, especially not having face-to-face schools,
Oh, yeah.
who would ever have thought? And
Right.
I think I have valued that personal contact because I think I took it for granted at one time, but now
Right.
seeing people without a mask on and all that kind of stuff and being able to
Right.
talk to them without fear of, catching something, I just value that, and I think I've learned that as a lesson.
Anything else you want to ask me before we're done?
So this is a question I ask I ask a lot of people, especially my son-in-laws when they want to marry my daughters. But what's your plan in the next 5 years, you and your family?
That's actually a really hard question because I have a daughter and a son-in-law who is married. They just had our first grandchild.
Congratulations.
I have a daughter. Thank you. I have a daughter moving. In fact, next Wednesday, I'll be bringing her to the airport in Jacksonville. She'll be flying off to be in a wedding in Louisville, and then from there she's flying to Vegas, and then we're going to meet her there, and then she's getting married. So I'll be another daughter. So I don't know. I guess being a man of faith, being a man of the cloth, whatever you want, all those crazy terms, but being a pastor, I guess, my position here depends on our people here, but ultimately it depends on God. So there have been times that I would like to have moved away because it would have been easier, but I didn't move here to make things easy. When we came here, we said we'll just go and give it all. I gave up a really good job, and I'm not saying I gave up, but I let go of a really good job, and we had just bought a house and was completing our first 5 years in there. And to move here, we sold it as is and for the price we owed just to get out from under it. Moved here to live, and we had a lot of work to do when we got here. But that's how we moved here. And the only way that I'll move is if, again, this isn't a religious podcast, but a personal question to me is the only way I'm moving is if God moves me, and He'll have to show me that's the case. So in 5 years from now, I really don't know.
Yeah.
I plan on being here unless God guides me somewhere else. I have two other daughters, 20 and 25, and I just want to continue, loving them, being the dad they need, and waiting for them to.
Yeah, a lot of times we have plans, but God has a plan too. So
Yeah.
we have to be very vigilant and listen to that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I just want to say thank you and get
I've
to know you a little
enjoyed
better.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't anything crazy. It was fun.
Yeah, I've enjoyed
So,
it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, besides sweating, it's okay.
Yeah, are you sweating? Yeah, I was going to tell you not to wear your suit coat. You don't have to worry about a suit coat. I don't. I'm a pastor. I don't own a suit coat.
Yeah.
I know you're not going to believe me, but I've done
think I
funerals,
sleep in
weddings.
this.
Do you? Yeah. But anyway, thank you for coming on. And,
Enjoyed it.
We will
Look
see
forward
you.
to seeing it and watching some of your other broadcasts.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
God bless.